Meet Kim San, your average, slightly timid first-year student at Yongsan High who just happens to be a secret superhuman. He spends his days blending into the crowd, just another face in the sea of students walking to school. His biggest personality trait, he's a total comic book nerd who carries his latest finds around like precious cargo. But while everyone else dreams of being a hero, Kim San thinks those goody-two-shoes types are honestly just cringe. He'd much rather root for the charismatic villains, because let's be real, being saved by a hero is just embarrassing. He finds the whole concept so pathetic that he'd rather just kick the bucket than be the damsel in distress. He can't help but smirk at the absurdity of it all, clearly finding his own dark sense of humor hilarious. He's so over the hero trope that he's practically mocking the very idea of it in the middle of the street. Things were perfectly normal a week ago, just Kim San and his buddy Junseop hanging out and planning to game. But that peaceful vibe gets absolutely nuked when a group of local school bullies decides to ruin their day. The mood shifts instantly as the notorious bullies from Deyong High stroll into the scene, looking like they own the place. Kim San and Junseop stand frozen, realizing they've just walked into a situation that's about to get very ugly. The leader of the pack waves with a mocking grin, clearly enjoying the terror he's inflicting on his targets. Without a second thought, he delivers a brutal, bone-jarring strike to Kim San's face, sending him reeling. It's a one-sided beatdown, and the worst part is that these guys are only doing it because they're bored out of their minds. With his vision blurring and his body failing him, Kim San desperately claws at the ground, finding a small, mysterious marble-like object. In a final, frantic act of defiance, he hurls the object at his attacker, hoping to create even a split second of distance. The projectile connects, leaving the bully stunned and visibly enraged that his victim actually dared to fight back. The bully grabs Kim San by the hair, demanding he retrieve the object while mocking the pathetic attempt at resistance. He then forces Kim San's head back, cruelly offering to let him off the hook if he swallows the marble, turning the assault into a sick game. The bullies laugh at their own cruelty, openly debating whether their victim will survive the bizarre stunt they're pulling. Kim San is forced to swallow the mysterious marble, his eyes wide with shock and the sheer humiliation of the situation. He wakes up in his room a week later, his mind a total blank regarding everything that happened after that fateful night. Being an orphan really sucks when you're dealing with mysterious trauma, leaving him to suffer through the aftermath all by himself. 7 days have passed and Kim San stirs from his sleep, his senses feeling strangely heightened and restless. He sits up in the dark, feeling an intense, gnawing thirst that he just can't seem to shake off. He wanders to his stash of drinks, only to find himself staring at a pile of soda cans with a look of pure disappointment. As he chugs a soda, he can't help but cringe at the memory of the bullies, feeling embarrassed that he was ever in such a pathetic position. Driven by an insatiable, unnatural thirst, he decides to head out into the night to find a convenience store. He walks through the quiet streets, unaware that the events of that night have already begun to change him in ways he can't yet comprehend. Kim San stands in the dark street, clutching his head as his rage over the bullies boils over into a dangerous, volatile state. Suddenly, his eyes flare with a terrifying blue energy as he lashes out, his hand slicing through the air with enough force to create a shockwave. He freezes in confusion, his eyes wide and glowing as he wonders what that sharp, snapping sound was. Before he can process the situation, his fist connects with a nearby structure, shattering it into pieces with a single, effortless strike. The impact sends a surge of energy into the nearby power pole, causing the streetlights to flicker and groan under the sudden electrical overload. A massive discharge of blue lightning erupts from his hand, tearing through the air and obliterating the surrounding area in a flash of pure power. The neighborhood plunges into chaos as the power grid fails, leaving the residents to panic and speculate about the sudden, violent tremor. Kim San stands amidst the wreckage, his face pale and eyes wide with pure terror as he realizes he might be the source of the destruction. Panic sets in as he hears the distant shouts of neighbors calling for help, and he realizes he needs to get out of there before he's caught. He stares at his own hands in disbelief, spiraling into a state of shock as he tries to comprehend the monstrous power he just unleashed. Kim San stands in the middle of his room, staring at his own hand as if it belongs to a complete stranger. He's spiraling, trying to connect the dots between his current freakish strength and that mysterious marble the bullies forced down his throat. He looks down at his palm, still fixated on the lingering memory of that strange, dark object he ingested. Determined to prove he isn't losing his mind, he places a 501 coin in his palm and clenches his fist with everything he's got. The metal groans and buckles under his grip, leaving him absolutely terrified by the sheer, destructive power he just exerted. He stares at the mangled, crushed remains of the coin, his face pale and his breathing ragged from the shock. He moves on to his books, slamming his hand down onto a stack to see if the destruction was just a fluke. With a sickening crunch, he tears through the thick covers and pages like they're made of wet tissue paper. He's pacing around, hyperventilating and psyching himself up to test his resilience against something much sharper. He grabs a kitchen knife, bracing himself to see if his skin can actually withstand the blade, ready to finally accept his new reality. Kim San is absolutely losing his mind, psyching himself up with a manic, adrenaline-fueled chant as he prepares to test his limits. He hurls the kitchen knife with such insane velocity that it becomes a blur, slicing through the air like a bullet. The blade slams into the wall with a deafening crash, proving that his strength is no longer just a fluke. He stares at his own hands in pure disbelief, finally accepting the terrifying reality that he has become a full-blown superhuman. He heads to the rooftop, looking out over the city at night while trying to wrap his head around this newfound, monstrous power. He nervously checks his surroundings to make sure he's alone, paranoid that someone might catch him acting like a lunatic. He crouches down, coiling his muscles like a spring and wondering if he'll survive the landing after launching himself into the sky. With a single, explosive movement, he rockets upward, leaving a massive shockwave in his wake as he defies gravity. The speed is so intense that he's blinded by the friction, his body glowing with an overwhelming, searing heat. He finally touches down, gasping for air and realizing in shock that he just cleared a massive 30-meter jump. Kim San's eyes are bloodshot and wide with pure, unadulterated panic as he realizes he's no longer in his bedroom. He finds himself floating in the terrifying silence of outer space, looking down at the curvature of the Earth like a lost astronaut. The realization hits him like a freight train, and he can barely choke out a word of disbelief at his situation. He frantically questions how he's even breathing, let alone speaking, while drifting through the cold vacuum of the cosmos. Gravity suddenly decides to stop being a suggestion, and he begins a high-velocity, uncontrolled descent back toward the planet. He screams in terror as he enters the atmosphere, his body becoming a human meteor streaking across the night sky. The friction turns him into a glowing streak of light, plunging toward the desolate expanse of the Chinese desert. He hits the ground with the force of a tactical nuke, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris upon impact. The desert floor is left scorched and cratered, a testament to the sheer, destructive energy of his uncontrolled re-entry. Kim San lies amidst the wreckage, battered, soot-covered, and barely clinging to consciousness after surviving a fall from the edge of space. Kim San wakes up in a daze, his body still covered in grime and blood, struggling to recall how many days he spent unconscious after that insane fall. He stares at his own hands in disbelief, noticing that despite the trauma of his re-entry, his skin is completely healed and the blood has finally dried. He recalls the sheer absurdity of his return, having to literally launch himself back home like a human projectile. Back in the comfort of his living room, he sprawls out on the couch, mindlessly flipping through channels while the TV blares about some hip-hop management show. The broadcast suddenly shifts to a news report about a mysterious power outage in Sinchon, and Kim San freezes as he realizes the timing matches his own little incident. He watches the screen with a growing sense of unease, listening to the news anchor confirm that the damage to the utility poles was definitely intentional. The news segment pivots to a hero named Les Paul, and Kim San's expression sours as he realizes he's about to be lectured by another caped crusader. On screen, Les Paul strikes a heroic pose while parading a captured criminal, preaching to the public about how heroes are always there to protect them. As Les Paul continues to drone on about the noble mission of the Grigori organization, Kim San just stares at the TV with a blank, unimpressed look. He rests his head on his hand, internally rolling his eyes at the hero's performative posturing and wondering why anyone actually buys into this cringeworthy act. Kim San stares intensely at the television, scoffing at the hero's display and insisting that being a hero isn't actually impressive. He dismisses the captured criminal on screen as nothing more than a total loser who failed to do the villain role justice. A wild thought crosses his mind, and he clutches his face in shock, wondering if he could actually pull off being a villain himself. He looks back at the screen, his eyes burning with newfound purpose as he realizes he has the power to stop playing by the rules. He decides that if even a pathetic criminal can play the part, then he, a literal superhuman, should be able to do it with style. He visualizes himself as the ultimate villain, convinced he would be infinitely more charismatic and cool than any of these tired heroes. He looks down at his comic book, finding validation in the pages for his twisted new worldview. He reflects on the tropes of the genre, concluding that wealth, charisma, and leisure are the true hallmarks of a villain's life. He mentally breaks down the hero's miserable existence, questioning why anyone would choose a life of constant harassment and thankless labor. He slams the comic book shut, fully embracing his dark epiphany and feeling genuinely hyped about his potential to become the villain he's always admired. Kim San stares into the void, his mind finally made up as he commits to a path of absolute chaos. His eyes ignite with a sinister, glowing blue intensity, and a twisted grin spreads across his face as he fully embraces his new identity as a villain. 3 days have crawled by since that life-altering decision, and he finds himself back at Yongsan High, looking at the school with a completely different perspective. He sits in the classroom, mindlessly enduring the drone of a lecture, feeling like he's trapped in a boring simulation of normal life. He scribbles aimless, dark thoughts into his notebook, questioning how exactly one goes about being a proper villain in the real world. As the class ends and a pop quiz looms, he slumps in his seat, wondering if he should just give up and be a hero instead. His friend Junseop suddenly pops up, looking way too cheerful as he checks in on a clearly exhausted Kim-san. Junseop keeps the questions coming, oblivious to the fact that his friend is currently harboring the power to level the city. Kim-san forces a laugh and plays it cool, all while internally screaming about the literal alien object he was forced to swallow. Junseop starts bragging about his imaginary martial arts skills, and Kim-san can't help but laugh at the sheer absurdity of his friend's posturing. Lee Jae-yoon suddenly sneaks up on Junseop in the classroom, startling him with a playful greeting. Ju Ha-yeon sits nearby, his face turning bright red as he stammers out her name in a state of total panic. Lee Jae-yoon turns her attention to Junseop, teasing him for his recent absences and calling him a delinquent. She continues to mock him, asking if he is jealous while jokingly offering to greet him properly next time. Ju Ha-yeon is clearly struggling to keep his cool, blushing uncontrollably while thinking about how pretty she looks. Lee Jae-yoon gives Junseop a final warning to stop skipping school before heading off with a cheerful wave. Junseop watches her go, casually mentioning to Kim-san that while she is pretty, her tomboyish personality is a bit much. Kim-san sits at his desk, looking annoyed and internally questioning why his classmate is trying so hard to act tough. Junseop continues to tease Ju Ha-yeon about his obvious crush on Lee Jae-yoon, causing the boy to snap back in embarrassment. The rest of the students look on, visibly annoyed by the loud, chaotic energy radiating from the group. The school bullies from Deong High strut into the classroom, looking to shake down the students for their weekly tribute. The leader flashes a predatory grin, acting like he's doing everyone a favor by only demanding a measly 500 won. Kim-san watches them from his desk, his knuckles white as he seethes at the audacity of these losers acting like they run the place. The bullies move through the rows, collecting cash in a bucket and making it clear that nobody is getting out of this payment. One bully gets impatient with a student aggressively demanding payment while mocking the kid for his slow reaction. Kim-san's internal monologue hits a breaking point, his eyes darkening as he contemplates finally unleashing his hidden power on these pests. The bully turns his attention to Lee Jae-yoon, coldly informing her that there are absolutely no exceptions to his extortion scheme. Seeing the bully harass Lee Jae-yoon is the final straw for Kim-san, and his expression turns into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The bullies continue their slow, menacing march through the classroom, completely unaware that they are walking toward their own destruction. Kim-san stands up, his posture tense and ready, as the bully looms over him and demands he hand over the money. Kim-san sits hunched over at his desk, his hands tightly clasped as he mutters a cold, dismissive command for the bullies to leave. The lead bully stares back in utter confusion, clearly not expecting the quiet kid to talk back to him. Kim-san's eyes snap up with a terrifying, dark intensity as he snaps at the bully, warning him that he's playing with fire. The bullies look genuinely rattled, their smug expressions replaced by a mix of shock and disbelief at the sudden shift in atmosphere. They exchange confused glances, mocking Kim-san for his strange behavior and questioning why he's whispering to himself. The leader looms over Kim-san, demanding he speak up and stop the mumbling, while Kim-san continues to mutter his dark warning under his breath. Kim-san finally drops the coin into the extortion bucket, his patience clearly hanging by a thread as he confirms his own internal resolve. The bullies decide to cut their losses and move on to the next classroom, though the leader leaves behind a final, menacing threat. Junseop immediately rushes over, fuming with rage and bragging about how he would have totally taken them down with a spinning kick if he had the chance. Kim-san just stares at his friend with a deadpan expression, internally marveling at how Junseop manages to stay so cluelessly optimistic. Kim-san sits alone on a bench, wallowing in the realization that his godlike powers haven't fixed his timid, cowardly nature. He picks up a rock, testing his grip, as he contemplates the terrifying reality that he could easily crush a human skull with his bare hands. The rock crumbles into dust in his palm, but he just sighs, feeling like there's no point to any of it. He leans back, spiraling into self-doubt about how a scared kid like him could ever pull off being a real-deal villain. Staring at the sunset, he muses on the perks of being a bully, wondering if he should try his hand at their little extortion game. Suddenly, a manic spark ignites in his eyes as he stands up, finally deciding that collecting money is the perfect way to start. He grins like a total maniac, convinced that he's an absolute genius for coming up with such a foolproof plan. A flicker of hesitation hits him as he worries about the morality of stealing, desperately searching for a way to do it without feeling guilty. Then it clicks, he'll just rob the bullies, rationalizing that their money is stolen anyway, which makes him the hero of his own twisted story. Back in his room, he sits at his desk, methodically preparing his gear as he fully commits to his new villainous path. Kim-san stares intensely at his reflection, his eyes wide and manic as he begins crafting his DIY villain mask. With trembling hands, he carefully assembles the makeshift eye mask, determined to hide his identity while he hunts for trouble. He holds up the finished product, shouting in triumph as he realizes his amateur creation is actually complete. Donning the mask, he grins wildly at himself, convinced that he finally looks like a legitimate, terrifying villain. He admires his handiwork, feeling a surge of pride as he officially dubs his new persona Mark I. He strikes a dramatic pose, pointing into the distance and declaring himself the mysterious owl man to an empty room. Reality quickly sets in, however, as he struggles with the mask's poor design, finding that it constantly slips and obscures his vision. Frustrated by the lack of durability, he realizes that a flimsy DIY mask just isn't going to cut it for a real-life villain. He eventually ditches the failed experiment, opting for a standard black face mask and a green bomber jacket that feels much more practical. Now fully equipped, he patrols the streets at night, finally spotting a group of bullies and preparing to make his move. The trio of thugs looks around in total confusion, wondering who exactly is calling them out in the dark alley. Kim-san watches them from the shadows, his glowing eyes betraying his presence as he stalks his prey. He berates himself for his own cowardice, disgusted that he's still trembling despite having the power of a god. 2 weeks of nightly patrols have yielded zero results, yet he clings to the delusion that he's doing something meaningful. He stands in the street, internally questioning why he's still paralyzed by fear whenever he faces these guys. He scans the area, desperately looking for a target that actually seems manageable for his first real villainous act. His eyes lock onto 2 students in brown uniforms, and he immediately recognizes them as the pests from D-Yong High. Back in his room, he frantically practices his villainous glare in a handheld mirror, trying to psych himself up for the confrontation. The bullies continue their conversation, laughing about the weird kid from Yongsan High and completely oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Kim-san finally steps out of the shadows, shouting at the duo and demanding their attention as he prepares to make his move. Kim-san strides into the alleyway, fully committed to his villainous debut as he demands the bullies hand over their cash. He immediately starts spiraling internally, patting himself on the back for that surprisingly smooth and intimidating opening line. The 2 bullies stare back in utter disbelief, cackling at the masked stranger who seems to have completely lost his marbles. Kim-san's confidence evaporates instantly as he stammers, struggling to maintain his menacing persona while the thugs mock his mask. The bullies continue to laugh, finding the entire situation hilarious and inviting the masked kid to step closer for a chat. Kim-san is visibly rattled, his eyes wide with panic as he realizes his grand entrance is turning into a total disaster. The thugs close the distance, taunting him about his shaking hands and offering him a choice between paying up or getting beaten. One bully finally loses his patience and wins up for a punch, while Kim-san lets out a pathetic, high-pitched squeak. Just as the fist is about to connect, Kim-san's hand shoots up, catching the strike midair with absolute effortless precision. The bully's face contorts into a mask of pure shock, completely stunned that his full-force blow was stopped like it was nothing. A mysterious figure with a wide, arrogant grin appears, casually dismissing the tension by claiming he usually avoids getting involved in petty squabbles between kids. Kim-san stares back in absolute disbelief, his hands flying to his head as he realizes the person standing before him is a genuine, high-profile superhero. The hero, revealed to be Les Paul of Team Grigory, strikes a confident pose, explaining that his professional duty simply wouldn't allow him to ignore the scene. The bully, clearly unimpressed and fueled by pure adrenaline, brandishes his knife and shouts that heroes are just as mortal as anyone else. Kim-san's eyes widen behind his mask, his internal monologue spiraling as he struggles to process that he's standing face-to-face with a celebrity hero. Les Paul remains unfazed, mocking the bully's choice of weapon and sarcastically commenting on how fearless these modern students have become. Enraged by the hero's condescending attitude, the bully screams that he isn't playing around and threatens to use the blade. The bully lunges forward with the knife, but Les Paul doesn't even flinch, looking more amused than threatened by the desperate attack. With a display of absolute arrogance, Les Paul effortlessly catches the tip of the incoming blade between his thumb and forefinger. The bully freezes in total shock, his weapon completely neutralized by the hero's casual superhuman grip. Les Paul stares down the knife-wielding bully, casually pointing out that pulling a blade on a superhero is basically a one-way ticket to a murder charge. He keeps that smug, arrogant grin plastered on his face, telling the terrified students that while he was willing to let their little extortion game slide, he's officially done playing nice. With a speed that's barely visible, Les Paul delivers a lightning-fast slap that sends the bully spiraling into the ground with a pathetic cry of pain. The second bully stands frozen in pure, unadulterated terror, watching his partner collapse into a heap without the hero even breaking a sweat. Les Paul turns his attention to the remaining bully, ordering him to stop acting like a deer in headlights and haul his unconscious friend home. He leans in with a menacing look, laying down the law that if they ever get into a fight again, they better leave the knives at home and fight like men. The remaining bully, clearly terrified for his life, screams that he's not going to let this humiliation slide, even as he struggles to carry his friend. Les Paul just narrows his eyes, his expression darkening as he asks the kid what exactly he thinks he's going to do about it. The bully immediately folds, his bravado vanishing as he starts stammering, desperately trying to suck up to the hero by offering to buy him a drink. As the bullies scramble away into the night, Les Paul sighs in frustration, grumbling about how the current juvenile justice system is a total joke. Les Paul turns his gaze toward the masked Kim San, his expression shifting from annoyance to a condescending, inquisitive smirk. The hero leans in, openly mocking the amateur vigilante for his pathetic attempt at a mugging and questioning his sanity. He continues to lecture the silent boy, warning him that his current approach is not only dangerous, but completely ill-suited for his skill level. Les Paul presses for answers, genuinely confused as to why the kid would risk his life for such a bottom-tier crime. The hero stands tall, radiating an aura of professional superiority, as he advises the boy to focus on building actual strength before playing villain. With a final, dismissive wave, Les Paul clarifies that he isn't encouraging more crime, then turns to walk away into the night. Kim San stands frozen in the dark, his internal monologue spiraling into a toxic whirlpool of self-loathing and pure, unadulterated shame. He stares at the ground, trembling with the crushing weight of his own inaction while the hero's words echo in his mind. A terrifying, dark energy begins to pulse behind his eyes, signaling that his suppressed rage is finally reaching a breaking point. His internal voice screams at him to stop holding back and just destroy everything, as his hands clench in a fit of uncontrollable, violent frustration. Kim San is clutching his head in agony as the mysterious, shadowy entity whispers that he holds the power to be invincible. The entity continues its dark manipulation, questioning if he really plans to let such godlike potential go to waste. It taunts him, asking if his hesitation is born from simple fear, and offers to take the reins and handle the dirty work for him. Kim San's eyes are bloodshot and wide with internal conflict, his mind clearly fracturing under the pressure of the entity's influence. Meanwhile, Song Chanyol and his cronies from Janjung High arrive on the scene, looking down at the kneeling Kim San with pure predatory amusement. Chanyol sneers at the sight of the masked boy, wondering aloud what kind of pathetic trash he's looking at. The bullies circle around him, laughing and mocking his posture, genuinely confused as to whether he's praying or just having a breakdown. Chanyol steps forward, introducing himself with an arrogant grin and demanding to know exactly who this masked weirdo thinks he is. They continue to jeer at him, finding his silence and his mask absolutely hilarious, while one of the cronies assumes he must have been beaten up elsewhere. As the bullies laugh about how pathetic he looks, the entity in the shadows decides it's seen enough and prepares to eliminate the target for good. The bullies from Janjung High continue their relentless mockery, laughing at the masked boy and assuming he is crying in fear. Song Chanyol grins with sadistic delight, explaining that rough treatment is the only way to keep losers like him in line. As Kim San clutches his head in agony, the unknown entity whispers dark taunts, questioning his cowardice and urging him to strike. Chanyol grows visibly irritated by the silence, snapping that he was trying to be nice, but now he is genuinely annoyed. The bully grips a metal pipe, declaring that losers always need a violent beatdown before they finally learn to listen. The entity continues its psychological assault, demanding Kim San stop resisting and commit to the kill while the boy desperately pleads for it to stop. The entity grows more aggressive, chanting for murder as Chanyol stands over Kim San, ready to start the violence by breaking his nose. Kim San reaches his absolute breaking point, his internal struggle finally snapping as he screams for the voices and the bullies to shut up. His eyes flare with a terrifying, cold intensity, signaling that the last shred of his moral restraint has officially evaporated. In one fluid, lethal motion, Kim San swings his arm with godlike force, delivering a devastating blow that instantly ends the confrontation. The bullies recoil in absolute horror, their faces pale as they stare at the gruesome aftermath of Kim San's strike. Kim San stands amidst the carnage, his eyes wide and hollow, his mask splattered with the blood of his victim. The bullies scramble back in a panic, screaming in disbelief as they realize Song Chanyol's arm has been completely severed. Kim San stares at his own trembling hand, his voice cracking as he desperately tries to deny that he intended to cause such carnage. Song Chanyol clutches the stump of his shoulder, his eyes rolling back as he gasps that the wound feels like it's burning with intense heat. The shock of the injury hits the bully like a physical blow, and he stumbles, crying out that the pain is becoming completely unbearable. With a heavy thud, Song Chanyeol collapses onto the pavement, his body hitting the ground as his cohorts watch in paralyzed fear. The remaining bullies hover over their fallen leader, shrieking in terror and wondering if they are witnessing a murder in real time. One of the cronies snaps, pointing at Kim San and screaming that he is a monster and a cold-blooded murderer. Kim San stands frozen in the alleyway, his hands held out in a state of shock as he realizes he has officially crossed the line of no return. Kim San is spiraling, his eyes glowing with a terrifying blue light as he struggles to process the horrific violence he just unleashed. Meanwhile, a news anchor reports on the grisly murder that took place in a Sinchon alleyway, identifying the victim as an 18-year-old male. The victim is confirmed to be Song Chanyeol, a known delinquent from Janjunghai, whose life ended abruptly at approximately 23:10. A coroner explains that the cause of death was massive blood loss and shock, resulting from the clean amputation of the boy's right arm. The medical expert notes that the nature of the wound suggests a swift, upward strike delivered by a heavy, bladed object like an axe. Les Paul stands by, visibly haunted by the crime, lamenting that he might have prevented the tragedy if he had only patrolled a little longer. The hero quickly dismisses the coroner's theory about a blade, insisting that the injury was actually inflicted by a human hand. Les Paul emphasizes that the sheer speed and brute force required to tear off a limb like that is completely beyond normal human limits. The coroner is stunned by the claim, but Les Paul remains firm, noting that he has encountered a few individuals capable of such impossible feats. The two men exchange a tense look, both wondering if they are dealing with a rogue superhuman or the work of a dangerous magic beast. Les Paul stares into the distance, his mind racing as he questions how many ordinary humans could possibly possess the strength to commit such a brutal act. The coroner brings up the report of a masked individual seen in the area, pointedly asking the hero if he has any information about the mysterious figure. Les Paul's internal alarm bells start ringing as he wonders if the kid he encountered could be involved, though he struggles to reconcile the timeline of events. He informs the coroner that he has some urgent business to attend to and needs to meet with the people capable of such impossible feats. With a dark, knowing smirk, he clarifies that he intends to track down these so-called humans and have a very serious conversation with them. Meanwhile, on a busy city street, a couple is caught completely off guard as a massive, sudden explosion rocks the area. A purple, armored magic beast descends from the sky like a falling star, crashing into the pavement with terrifying force. The impact sends a shockwave of debris flying, leaving the nearby civilians screaming in absolute terror as the dust clouds billow. The couple cowers in the middle of the street, shielding their faces and frantically trying to comprehend the sudden, violent destruction. The smoke clears to reveal the monstrous magic beast, its spiked, reptilian form emerging from the crater as the public realizes their worst nightmare has arrived. The purple magic beast looms over the terrified crowd, its jagged teeth bared as it demands they evacuate while simultaneously begging for help in a display of pure, chaotic confusion. With a sudden, explosive burst of movement, the creature launches itself into the air, closing the distance to its targets in a heartbeat. It strikes with brutal efficiency, slamming into a bystander and leaving a spray of blood across the pavement as the surrounding civilians watch in horror. A woman nearby clutches her face, her eyes wide with absolute, paralyzing terror as the reality of the slaughter sets in. Panic erupts on the street as people scramble to escape, screaming for the police while the beast continues its rampage. One man, clearly losing his grip on reality, shouts that the police are useless and that they need the military to intervene immediately. Just as the situation reaches a boiling point, the superhero Les Paul arrives on the scene, his yellow cowl and suit standing out against the urban backdrop. A man in a suit stares at the hero, his face pale and trembling as he realizes he's completely out of his depth. Les Paul ignores the panicked civilians, calmly directing them to safety while keeping his eyes locked on the threat. With a swift, practiced motion, the hero sheds his blazer, preparing to engage the beast and show it exactly why he's the top-tier professional. Les Paul rips open his dress shirt to reveal a sleek, high-tech suit underneath, signaling that he's done playing the part of a civilian. The magic beast continues to cackle, mocking the humans as if they were nothing more than insignificant insects beneath its feet. The creature pauses its rampage to notice the hero, sneering at the man who has suddenly stepped into the fray. The beast recoils in shock, its eyes widening as it realizes it is standing face-to-face with the legendary Hanel. Clinging to the side of a building, the monster shrieks in excitement, finally acknowledging the hero's arrival. The creature taunts the hero, clearly familiar with the rumors surrounding Hanel's reputation as the strongest human alive. Hanel stands his ground in the middle of the street, looking completely unfazed by the monstrous threat looming before him. A close-up reveals a cold, confident smirk on the hero's face as he dismisses the creature's curiosity about his true power. He adjusts his hair with a menacing grin, promising the beast that it will discover the truth about his strength whether it wants to or not. With a sudden burst of speed, Hanel lunges forward, taunting the monster and preparing to put his legendary reputation to the test. The magic beast snarls in pure disbelief, absolutely insulted that a mere human dares to stand in its way. It lunges through the air with predatory speed, but Hanel stands ready, his body crackling with raw electric energy. With a swift, calculated movement, Hanel unleashes a massive bolt of electricity, his eyes locked onto the incoming monster. The surge of power tears through the air, striking the creature with enough force to send it spiraling backward in agony. The beast crashes into the pavement, stunned and bleeding, while Hanel looms over it with a look of cold, professional detachment. Realizing it's outmatched, the creature lets out a desperate, high-pitched wail, clearly terrified by the hero's overwhelming display of force. The monster refuses to go down without a fight, clenching its fist as it begins to channel a forbidden summoning art. It screams out a final, hateful threat, gathering the energy for a desperate, scorching counterattack. Suddenly, a massive, ethereal saintess statue manifests from the void, trapping Hanel within a blinding, holy light. Hanel finds himself suspended in midair, staring up at the giant, spectral figure in total confusion as the summoning art takes hold. The magic beast slams its palms together in a desperate prayer, the sound echoing with a sickening, wet crunch as blood splatters into the air. A massive, glowing magic circle erupts on the pavement, tearing through reality as a spectral, haunting figure begins to manifest from the void. Kim San, watching from the shadows, pulls out a glowing yellow talisman, his eyes narrowing as he prepares to intervene in the supernatural chaos. The civilians on the street freeze in their tracks, their faces twisted in a mix of confusion and mounting dread as the air begins to hum with raw energy. The crowd suddenly erupts into wild, frantic cheers, throwing their hands up in pure, unadulterated hype as they realize their favorite hero is still standing. Les Paul looks back at the screaming masses, his expression shifting from battle-hardened focus to a slightly annoyed, celebrity-style realization. He brushes his hair back, clearly overwhelmed by the sudden influx of fan adoration while he's trying to deal with a literal monster. A mother rushes forward with her young daughter, desperately asking the hero for a quick photo despite the ongoing danger. Les Paul flashes a charming, professional smile, completely dropping his guard to engage with the fans and ask the little girl for a selfie. The hero awkwardly holds up his phone to snap a picture with the excited child, momentarily forgetting the beast as he plays the role of the perfect public icon. Les Paul leans in for a selfie with an adoring fan, flashing a picture-perfect smile while the chaos of the battle rages on in the background. The young girl beams with pure joy, telling the hero that she will treasure the photo forever and jokingly asking if he will marry her when she grows up. Les Paul chuckles, clearly amused by the innocent request, and tells the girl to make sure she grows up healthy and strong. The situation quickly spirals as more fans swarm the hero, all of them clamoring for their own selfies and attention while Les Paul looks visibly overwhelmed. The crowd pushes in closer, with multiple fans shouting for his attention and even jokingly proposing marriage, leaving the hero looking slightly panicked. Les Paul raises his hands in a defensive gesture, trying to maintain his composure while pleading with the mob to prioritize the injured civilians. A man in a suit approaches, interrupting the fan frenzy to inform the hero that he has an urgent phone call that requires his immediate attention. Les Paul steps away from the crowd, apologizing to his fans as he answers the call and greets the person on the other end. His expression shifts from celebrity charm to cold, focused intensity as he listens to the details of the incident involving the severed arm. With a sharp, determined look in his eyes, Les Paul confirms that he understands the situation and declares that the confrontation will happen tonight. Les Paul, looking as serious as a heart attack, issues a direct order to summon the entire Grigory team. The elite members of the world's strongest hero team assemble, casting long shadows under the organization's glowing emblem. The team gathers at Grigory headquarters, with Les Paul taking the lead to summarize the disturbing situation at hand. Les Paul leans over the table, his mask-clad face grim as he warns the others that something massive and unknown is brewing in the dark. Red Wildcat scoffs at the tension, arrogantly questioning why everyone is so worked up over a single severed arm. Sir Jin isn't buying the bravado, pointing out that if Les Paul is this worried, they definitely shouldn't be laughing it off. Les Paul doubles down, insisting that the surgical precision of the wound is beyond any normal level of power or speed. Blue Russian chimes in with a cold reality check, noting that if Les Paul couldn't pull off such a feat, then almost no hero could. Les Paul narrows his eyes, clarifying that among their ranks, only he and Blue possess the raw capability for that kind of destruction. Red Wildcat loses his cool, snapping back with a hostile glare and refusing to accept that he's not on their level. The masked hero smirks, casually dismissing the other man's challenge as if he were swatting away a fly. Red Wildcat bristles with rage, his face contorting as he insults the hero's arrogance and reminds him of past beatings. The hero remains completely unbothered, taunting his rival by pretending he cannot hear the pathetic threats being hurled his way. Tensions skyrocket as the two lock eyes, trading sharp barbs about their height and the hero's long absence from the front lines. The hero delivers a low blow, mockingly referencing a past encounter in a bathhouse to rattle his opponent's composure. Red Wildcat loses his mind, screaming in disbelief that the hero would bring up such a private and embarrassing detail. Esther watches the childish bickering with a look of pure exhaustion, clearly tired of these two ego-driven heroes constantly at each other's throats. Blue Russian suggests that if they cannot find the culprit, they should simply leave the investigation to the mysterious force known as darkness. The hero snaps back at Red Wildcat, telling him to shut up and pointing out that the target is currently off the grid and likely hunting criminals. Hanel, the leader of Grigory, delivers his final verdict, declaring that a powerful new superhuman has emerged, whether they be a hero or a villain. The city skyline looms in the dark, silent and oblivious to the life-altering crime that just shattered Kim San's world. Back in his room, Kim San sits curled up on his bed, his posture radiating a deep, hollow sense of isolation. He stares into the blue-tinted darkness, his mind replaying the news report and the terrifying realization that he is now a killer. His hands tremble as he grips his own face, horrified by the chilling discovery that his conscience is eerily silent. The unknown entity looms over his psyche, taunting his fear and validating his actions with a twisted, dark logic. It relentlessly probes his insecurities, questioning if he is truly afraid of the murder or just terrified of the consequences. The entity demands he stop the internal whining, insisting that violence is his true nature and he should embrace the carnage. Kim San remains hunched over in despair, completely consumed by the entity's dark, suffocating influence. Meanwhile, at school, his classmates chat mindlessly about video games, completely unaware that their peer has just crossed a point of no return. Lee Jae-yoon questions Junseop about Kim San's absence, her growing concern contrasting sharply with the dark reality of his new, violent life. Junseop tries to play it cool, telling the group that Kim San is probably just dealing with a minor illness. The group discusses the possibility of visiting Kim San's home, with Lee Jae-yoon noting that he lives all by himself. A classmate laughs off the concern, teasing Lee Jae-yoon about why she is so obsessed with checking up on their missing friend. Lee Jae-yoon snaps back at the teasing, though her expression reveals she is genuinely worried about whether Kim San is actually okay. 1 month after the brutal incident, Kim San patrols the city streets, having fully embraced his new life of skipping school and robbing delinquents. He encounters a pair of thugs in a dark alley, his internal monologue revealing that he has become completely desensitized to the violence. When one of the thugs tries to lash out, Kim San effortlessly shuts him down with a single, precise punch to the face. After knocking them out, he casually pockets the cash he stole, already dreaming about how rich he is going to become. Kim San walks away from the scene with his hands behind his head, laughing to himself about how easy and satisfying his new lifestyle has become. As he plots to expand his criminal turf, he is suddenly caught off guard when Lee Jae-yoon spots him lurking in the shadows. Kim San is caught completely off guard in the shadows, his eyes bulging as someone calls out his name from the darkness. His heart nearly stops when he realizes it is Lee Jae-yoon, and the sheer shock of being discovered leaves him visibly trembling. Lee Jae-yoon stands before him, looking calm but suspicious as she demands to know exactly what he is doing out here. Kim San frantically tries to hide his face, his mind racing as he wonders how she could possibly have recognized him through his mask. He stammers and stutters, his voice cracking as he tries to play it cool while desperately scrambling to maintain his composure. Lee Jae-yoon confronts him about his constant school absences, her tone sharp as she questions if he is actually doing okay. Kim San tries to tuck away the item in his hands, his nerves fraying as he attempts to brush off her intense scrutiny with a nervous laugh. She continues to press him, clearly annoyed that she had to track him all the way to his house just to get an answer. Before he can even process her presence, Lee Jae-yoon delivers a lightning-fast strike to his face, leaving him reeling from the unexpected impact. Kim San collapses, his mind reeling as he struggles to comprehend how someone as ordinary as her could possess such terrifying, superhuman speed. Lee Jae-yoon doesn't hold back, landing a clean, brutal strike right on Kim San's jaw that sends him reeling. She laughs off the tension, casually threatening him with a playful warning that he better not skip school again or else. With a bright, innocent smile, she tells him she is satisfied that he is still in one piece and prepares to take her leave. Kim San, still dazed and clutching his throbbing face, awkwardly offers to walk her home, though he internally doubts she even needs the protection. Lee Jae-yoon brushes off the offer with a laugh, insisting she is not a child and doesn't need a chaperone. Kim San fumbles his words, his internal monologue screaming at him for being such an idiot while he watches her walk away. Back in the safety of his room, Kim San lies in bed, staring at the ceiling as the reality of his school life suddenly hits him. He questions why he even bothers with school anymore, feeling like his education has become completely irrelevant to his new, dark path. The memory of Lee Jae-yoon's face and her firm demand to see him in class tomorrow flashes through his mind like a haunting reminder. A twisted, obsessive grin spreads across his face as he decides that, for her sake, he will definitely show up at school. Kim San walks down the school hallway, looking completely drained and caught off guard when someone calls out his name. Junseop jogs up to him with a grin, clearly amused to see his friend finally showing his face at school again. Junseop teases him about his long absence, jokingly asking if he was trying to get himself killed by skipping class so much. Kim San tries to play it cool, claiming he was just incredibly busy, while Junseop laughs and calls him out for being a total otaku. Kim San awkwardly fumbles with his locker, his mind drifting away from the conversation as he wonders if Lee Jae-yoon is nearby. He spots Lee Jae-yoon standing with her friends, and his heart skips a beat at the sight of her. Lee Jae-yoon notices him and beams with a bright, welcoming smile, clearly happy to see that he finally returned to school. Kim San is visibly flustered, internally gushing over how much she looks like an angel while he tries to greet her back. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere is shattered by a loud, aggressive shout echoing through the school, demanding that everyone sit down. A group of bullies with eerie, glowing blue eyes steps into the room, announcing that it is time for their routine extortion. Kim San stares blankly into space, his mind suddenly jolted by the realization that he completely forgot about the school's dreaded collection day. The buzzcut bully looms over the class, impatiently demanding that everyone cough up their 501 so they can hurry off to terrorize the next room. Kim San remains eerily calm, internally musing that after dealing with real-life thugs every single night, this pathetic classroom extortion doesn't scare him in the slightest. A lackey holding the collection bucket impatiently prods Kim San, grumbling that they do not have all day to wait for his payment. Kim San reaches into his jacket, his expression unreadable as he prepares to address the demand. With a fake, carefree grin, he tells the bullies that he completely blanked on the date and is currently flat broke, promising to pay them back later. The buzzcut leader is instantly triggered by the defiance, shoving his lackey aside to deal with this insolent punk personally. Without a second of hesitation, the bully winds up and delivers a brutal, stinging slap directly across Kim San's face. Kim San stands there reeling from the impact, a fresh red mark blooming across his cheek as he stares down at the floor. The leader sneers in disbelief, questioning if this is some kind of joke before recognizing Kim San as the same weirdo who was muttering to himself the last time they met. Kim San stands in the classroom, his face shadowed and his eyes glowing with a malevolent red light as he feels deeply insulted by the slap. The dark entity within him seethes with rage, whispering that he should kill the bully for daring to lay a hand on him. The bully, completely oblivious to the monster standing before him, asks his crony if the collection is finished so they can move on to the next class. Kim San mutters under his breath that he knows exactly what needs to be done, his voice dripping with a cold, dangerous intent. The bully snaps at Kim San to stay put, but then dismisses him as an annoyance, deciding to prioritize shaking down Class B instead. Kim San looks up with a chilling, dead-eyed stare, calmly asking the bully where exactly he should wait for him. The bully freezes in his tracks, his expression shifting from arrogance to genuine confusion as he tries to process the boy's bizarre question. Kim San presses the issue, reminding the bully that he was the one who told him to stay, so he is simply asking for clarification on the location. Junseop panics, frantically grabbing Kim San and begging him to stop acting crazy and just apologize before things get even worse. The bully's face contorts into a mask of pure disbelief and fury, demanding that Kim San repeat his insolent words so he can make him regret them. Kim San stares back with a chilling, predatory grin, mocking the bully for his apparent inability to hear a simple question. The buzzcut bully's eyes widen in pure, unadulterated rage as he struggles to process the sheer audacity of the boy standing before him. Kim San continues to taunt the aggressor, his expression twisted into a dark, mocking smile as he goads the bully into making a move. One of the lackeys nervously interjects, desperately urging the group to keep moving and finish their rounds before their superior, Taejin, loses his temper. The leader snaps back at Kim San with a venomous threat, warning him that he better not even think about leaving the classroom. Kim San remains completely unfazed, nonchalantly agreeing to the demand while warning the bully not to take too long. The bully's face contorts with intense, twitching frustration as he tries to contain his urge to snap and commit immediate violence. Another lackey chimes in, clearly panicked and annoyed that the bell has already rung, urging the group to stop wasting time. The leader turns his back, shouting a final, desperate threat that he will hunt Kim-san down to the ends of the earth if he tries to run. The group of bullies finally turns to leave, grumbling about what a massive drag the entire situation has become as they head out into the hallway. Junseop is losing his mind, frantically questioning if Kim-san has finally snapped and lost his grip on reality. Kim-san, however, is completely unfazed, stubbornly insisting that since the bully told him to stay, he has no choice but to follow orders. Kim-san sits at his desk, scribbling in his notebook while internally debating whether he went a little too far with his recent outburst. He worries that his aggressive behavior might draw unwanted attention, wondering if he should just let the bullies beat him up next time to keep his cover. Suddenly, the thought of Lee Jae-yoon watching him makes him pause, and he wonders if his recent display of defiance actually made him look cool. Lee Jae-yoon looms over him, her expression one of pure panic as she demands to know why he is just sitting there instead of running for his life. She is absolutely terrified, screaming that the bullies are coming back for him and that he needs to get out of there immediately. Kim-san just laughs it off with a smug, blushing grin, acting like the entire situation is a total joke that isn't worth worrying about. Lee Jae-yoon is beyond frustrated, shouting that he is not a child anymore and that his stubborn refusal to run away is just plain embarrassing. Kim-san is visibly rattled by her blunt criticism, his face flushing deep red as he stammers, clearly wounded by being called embarrassing. Kim-san lets out a manic, high-pitched laugh, desperately trying to convince everyone he is just a normal student and not some kind of freak. The buzzcut bully stares at him with pure disgust, clearly baffled by the sheer audacity of the kid standing right in front of him. Lee Jae-yoon is absolutely fed up with the nonsense, stepping forward and threatening to drag a teacher into this mess to end the harassment. The bully doesn't even flinch, telling her to go right ahead while he turns his cold, predatory gaze back toward Kim-san. Kim-san keeps up his frantic, sweating act, waving his arms and promising Lee Jae-yoon that he has everything under control and won't be fighting. The bully sneers, mocking the idea of a fight and clarifying that the only thing happening today is a one-sided beatdown. The group of bullies continues to loom over them, demanding that Kim-san stop playing tough and just step outside to take his punishment. The scene shifts to the school rooftop, where the bullies have cornered their target, looking down on him like he is already finished. Two bored female bullies watch from the sidelines, whispering to each other about how much of a loser Kim-san looks and asking if they can join in the abuse. The buzzcut leader snaps at his own lackey to keep his mouth shut and stop interfering, clearly annoyed by the constant interruptions to his fun. The bully leader looms over Kim-san, demanding to know what kind of stunt he was trying to pull earlier. Kim-san keeps up his pathetic act, scratching his head and offering a fake, nervous apology for his earlier behavior. The bullies just laugh at his sudden change in attitude, mocking him for being so incredibly naive and spineless. Without warning, the leader snaps and delivers a brutal, heavy-handed strike that sends Kim-san reeling backward. The bully glares down at him, clearly annoyed that Kim-san is still wearing that same idiotic, blank expression. He winds up for another vicious blow, screaming insults as he slams his fist into Kim-san's face once again. Kim-san hits the ground hard and the bullies stand over him, sneering at how completely clueless and weak he looks. The leader towers over the fallen boy, barking a final, violent threat that today is going to be his last day. Nearby, two female bullies watch the abuse with cruel amusement, openly wishing they could join in to see him cry. As the unknown entity screams for blood, Kim-san's eyes glow with a terrifying red intensity, and he finally wonders if he should just kill them all. Kim-san kneels on the floor, his internal rage bubbling over as he mentally curses the bullies for daring to lay a hand on him. The dark, smoky entity within him pushes for total carnage, demanding that he rip his tormentors apart right this second. Kim-san forces a fake, hollow smile, offering a pathetic apology and reaching out a hand as if he's ready to just walk away from the conflict. The entity mocks his attempt at de-escalation, questioning why he's bothering to apologize when he should just be ending their lives. Kim-san snaps back at the voice in his head, desperately insisting that he is trying to keep things quiet and clean up the situation without resorting to murder. The entity scoffs at his moral posturing, reminding him that killing is the fastest and most efficient way to solve his problems. Kim-san is visibly shaken, his eyes wide as he questions if the entity has lost its mind, firmly stating that murder is absolutely off the table. The entity lets out a chilling, mocking laugh, and when Kim-san asks what could possibly be so funny, it reveals that he has already crossed that line. The bully leader, completely oblivious to the internal war, grabs Kim-san by the collar and demands to know if he's finally realized how screwed he is. As the bully continues to scream threats and deliver stinging slaps, Kim-san's resolve finally crumbles, and he silently accepts that the time for games is over. Kim-san finally stops playing the victim, calmly reaching out to intercept the bully's arm with a terrifyingly casual grip. The bully is completely blindsided, his arrogance instantly replaced by confusion as he realizes he can't pull his arm away from the kid he was just tormenting. Kim-san doesn't waste a second, tightening his hold until the sickening crunch of bone echoes through the air. The bully's world turns into a nightmare of pure agony as he lets out a blood-curdling scream, his body buckling under the sudden, crushing pressure. The other bullies watch in absolute horror, their faces pale as they realize the quiet kid they bullied has just turned into a monster. Kim-san ignores the pleas for mercy, relentlessly pinning the leader down and forcing him to endure the agonizing sensation of his own arm being dismantled. With a cold, detached expression, Kim-san remarks on how pathetic and fragile the bully's strength truly is, comparing his bones to soft tofu. He stares into the bully's tear-filled eyes, coldly musing that he barely even had to try to shatter the guy's arm. Kim-san demonstrates his terrifying control, applying just a fraction of his true power to ensure the bone is completely pulverized. With one final, decisive squeeze, he finishes the job, leaving the bully in a heap of broken agony while he stands over him with total, detached superiority. The bully's face is reduced to a shattered, skeletal mess, the sheer force of the impact leaving him completely incapacitated. Kim-san stands amidst the carnage, looking down at the broken group of bullies who are now groaning and writhing in agony on the floor. One of the remaining thugs cowers on his knees, his eyes wide with terror as he demands to know what kind of freakish power Kim-san is hiding. The bully desperately begs for forgiveness, his bravado completely evaporated as he kneels before Kim-san in a pathetic display of submission. Kim-san stares back with hollow, chilling eyes, his expression utterly devoid of empathy as he listens to their frantic pleas. He looks down at them with a cold, detached curiosity, clearly unimpressed by their sudden shift from aggressors to sniveling cowards. The bullies are baffled by his lack of reaction, unable to comprehend how he can remain so calm after inflicting such brutal violence. Two female bystanders watch from the sidelines, screaming in horror and branding him a monster for his ruthless, excessive display of force. Kim-san turns his back on the wreckage, calmly walking toward the rooftop door while the defeated bullies lie broken behind him. The scene shifts to the local emergency center, where the aftermath of the confrontation inevitably leads to medical intervention for the severely injured group. The hospital ward is filled with the pathetic groans of the bully group, all laid out in their beds like broken toys. One of the injured thugs looks up, his face pale as he nervously suggests they should call T-Jin for backup. Another bully stares blankly at the ceiling, questioning the point of calling for help when their situation is already completely hopeless. A third member, his head wrapped in thick bandages, can only let out muffled, desperate cries of pain. The group continues to panic, lamenting that they failed the collection day and fearing the wrath of the senior Chung Jiangsu. One of the bullies finally snaps, losing his patience and screaming at his comrades to shut up because their constant noise is driving him insane. He clutches his arm in a sling, his expression twisted in agony as he insists that T-Jin isn't the real problem but the senior is. Suddenly, the door swings open and the group gasps in shock, realizing that T-Jin has actually arrived to witness their failure. T-Jin stands in the doorway, looking completely unimpressed and annoyed as he demands to know what kind of disaster they managed to get themselves into. He surveys the room of broken, whimpering students with a cold, judgmental sneer, clearly disgusted by the pathetic state of his underlings. T-Jin stares down at his battered underlings with pure disdain, unable to believe that a single student managed to dismantle their entire group. The injured bully hangs his head in defeat, offering a pathetic apology and expressing his deep shame for failing their leader. T-Jin tells the group to just focus on recovering, but his dismissive tone only makes the terrified bully scramble to stop him from leaving. The bully desperately warns T-Jin to abandon any plans for revenge, his voice shaking as he pleads with him to just let it go. T-Jin glares at him, completely baffled and annoyed by the sudden, cowardly change in his subordinate's attitude. The bully points to his own shattered arm, trembling as he insists that the person who did this is simply not human. T-Jin listens with a look of cold impatience, asking if this mysterious opponent is some kind of monster that they should be worried about. T-Jin demands a clear explanation of what he is supposed to do, his frustration mounting as he tries to make sense of their fear. The bully stares back with wide, haunted eyes, repeating that their attacker is something entirely beyond human limits.